If you go to the ICU, most ICUs, most patients in ICU, it's because of stroke. What is stroke? So as long as you're an adult, have your glucose checked, have your cholesterol checked, have your blood pressure checked. Are you interested in knowing what the 10 top illnesses are that are causing, that are shortening the human lifespan in the current world as per today, like 2026? Of course, this information is based on information gathered globally. Yeah, we see what out of maybe 100 deaths, what is the common reason why these people are dying, such that we know what to prevent. When you prevent the ones causing like you reduce deaths when you prevent the leading causes first. Yeah. Now these top 10, which we usually consider, are the ones which out of 100, like they're responsible for 57. Imagine there are like a million illnesses on the planet, but these 10 are responsible for 57 out of every 100 deaths. That's quite the rest are responsible for 43, but these ones that I'm going to talk about are the ones that are causing 57 of every 100 deaths in the world. Yeah, and I'll start with, of course, the most leading cause, or maybe no. Let me start with the number 10. Then we shall move upwards, and then we shall see that top most that is claiming most of our lives. Yeah, and we see how to adjust our lifestyle in that we don't fall a victim of such kinds of things. Yeah. So on number 10 on the list, of course, this is by World Health Organization, and even what I've observed in clinical practice, there are those illnesses that you come across more commonly than others. So on number 10 on the list, we have tuberculosis. I don't know if you've heard of this, or TB. Some people term it as TB. TB is number 10 among the leading causes of death currently. And because the reason why it's killing a lot of people, because it affects a major organ, like our lungs. Our lungs are the ones that help us to process the air that we take in. Once they are damaged, the air, like we can no longer process the oxygen that we are taking in, and oxygen does help our bodies. It's life. In other words, it's actually life. It's an important component. If you cannot process it and have it used by the body, life will be cut short. And just to give you a brief about tuberculosis, it spreads from person to person through inhalation, just like COVID-19. You remember how we ended up putting on masks for COVID-19 and all these things? It was to prevent that kind of transmission where for example, if they cough and we breathe in their air droplets, that's how we get TB. But not everyone that inhales, unlike COVID-19, not everyone that inhales these air droplets of TB actually gets active disease. Not everyone. Usually, this disease, when you take in those germs, they stay in our body silent. Like our body fights, so they stay silent. However, with time, when our immunity goes down, when our defenses goes down, when our soldiers go down, that's when now it comes out. Like most of us assume we don't have it, but you can't know. Especially public means, using public transport, being in public places. You don't know when you will interact with someone with TB. You get. So that's how usually when our defenses go down, that's when it comes out. For example, if cases of if we suffer maybe HIV, HIV puts our defenses down. If we suffer diabetes puts our defense down. If we suffer things like, if we get in scenarios where we need chemotherapy also puts our body's defense down. Malnutrition, all these things, that's how TB comes out. And once it comes out, if it's not treated early, it's taking a lot of lives. So if you're that person, you've been diagnosed with TB, you've been found to have TB, make sure it's treated early. Of course, not forgetting that currently there is a TB strain that is moving around, which TB is resistant to a lot of drugs. Yeah. So if you're that kind of person, take heart, make sure you're treated. Yeah. Usually most of these things are treatable once they are got early. Yeah. And if you are at risk of if you have those illnesses we mentioned which are putting your defenses down, you also need to keep on the watch out. You need to watch out for such things. Yeah. TB is claiming a lot of lives. So that was number 10. I'll move to number 9. That is neonatal complications. That may sound a bit complex, but I mean, neonatal refers to the period of our life, the first 28 days of life, yeah, after we've been born. And in this case, when I talk about neonatal complications, I mean, there are those illnesses that happen when we are so little. Like, for example, there are babies who are born tired. Yeah. For example, the birth process maybe was delayed. Like the baby, once the baby is ready to be born, yeah. If the process delays, yeah, like there is a way the baby's breathing, intake of oxygen and everything gets affected. Then some organs like the brain get affected, some parts die off, and we end up having a baby who is born and he's very weak, and or because the birth process was tampered with. For example, people who will try to quicken the delivery process, you end up causing a lot of commotion that will make that baby tired. If you're pregnant, you're in your last trimester, that's a very critical period where you need to be very careful. Yeah, you want to go for delivery on time. You don't want to take any mixtures that you don't know which may tamper with the baby. You need to make sure you're monitored. The baby is monitored throughout the delivery process, because usually when the baby is inside, yeah, when the fetus, like before it's born, usually we can monitor the heartbeat, and then we see this heart is pumping so slowly or it's pumping too fast, and that communicates to something. Yeah, it tells us that this baby is getting tired. Yeah, and usually delivery is done as soon as possible, and we notice that. But if the baby is not being monitored, that may happen and it goes unnoticed. So neonatal complications are one of the leading things that are affecting human life. Number 8 among things claiming our lives as humans is chronic kidney disease. This cannot be I don't know how more to emphasize this, but kidney disease, first of all, it's causing a lot of people admitted in hospitals because of this. And what causes it? It's caused by uncontrolled high blood pressures and diabetes that has not been well treated. Those are the leading causes of kidney disease. So if you're living with high blood pressure, you're living with diabetes, make sure you keep them controlled. Yeah, make sure you keep being checked, even if it means adjusting medication to the most effective, such that we make sure that it's controlled. We don't want the kidneys involved. Yeah, because once they're involved, usually they create a cascade of a lot of issues. Yeah, if you don't have hypertension, high blood pressure, you don't have diabetes, make sure you avoid them. But even if you have them already, make sure they are well controlled. Yeah? So that is your number 8. That's number 8 on the list. Number 7 on the list, among the leading causes of human deaths and things that are reducing our lifespan, we have lung cancer. In fact, this is the only cancer on this list. I've cheated for you. Don't expect any other cancer up there. It's the only cancer on the list, the most common cancer. And we all know what causes this. Yeah? Like the leading cause of 90% of these cancers is tobacco smoking. Yeah? And we've heard of things like nicotine in tobacco. Nicotine is actually not the one that causes lung cancer. Rather, for it causes addiction. But in this tobacco, there are over 70 components that are capable of starting a cancer, at any one time. So you know what to do. You know the cause, yeah. So lung cancer is the leading, and it spreads so fast. Then it's usually discovered late. That's the other disadvantage. That's one of the reasons why it's taking a lot of us. It's discovered late and it spreads so fast. Something they call metastasis, yeah. It moves so fast, and it causes it cuts our lives short. Yeah, so that is number 7 on the list. What is number 6 on the list among things that are claiming a lot of our lives and which we need to look out for? That is diabetes mellitus. This is not a secret. This is all over billboards, all over hospital charts. Everyone is talking about diabetes mellitus. And why is diabetes claiming our lives? Diabetes is claiming our lives when it's not well controlled. If you're having this kind of illnesses like diabetes, this is a long-term illness. Get attached to a stable kind of health giving. Usually they are in health clinics. Usually they are like diabetes clinic where someone will be there, will be monitored even for 20 years. Yeah? Don't get attached to temporal places where you can't even follow up with that particular practitioner, or the clinic will close after 3 months. You keep getting new people and they may mismanage you. It's usually easier if you get attached to a place that will follow you up for a longer time. Yeah, you realize that if that is followed up, they can know how you started the journey. You move the journey with a practitioner, at a You're both aware of what has been happening, which drugs you started with, where are you now? So things of that sort, yeah. So diabetes, and usually when it's not controlled, I don't know why it's taking our lives. When it's not controlled, it damages a lot of things. It can damage the brain, it can damage the heart, it can damage the kidneys, it can damage the eyes, it can damage the legs. We've seen people's legs being cut off, amputations. The leading cause of amputations is diabetes, you get, other than, of course, accidents. Diabetes, yeah, it's making people get amputations. Their limbs are being cut off because of this. So a lot of things. It affects a lot of things. That's why we really need to get serious with it, yeah. Then what is we're on number 6. I'll move to number 5. So number 5 on the list are what we call infections of the respiratory system, yeah. And by this, usually it's pneumonia. I don't know, we've heard of pneumonia. That's an easier one to take. The other word is longer, but when you talk about pneumonia, we know. And this pneumonia is basically infections that affect our lungs, or that system down there, our breathing system. So down there, the lungs and those pipes in there. And for pneumonia, unlike these others, it's usually common in either if you're young, like babies, or when we are older, like when we advance in age, yeah. So these are they usually come up at those stages, and it's because when we are too young and when we are older, when we advance in age, our immunity declines a bit. So that's what makes us susceptible. Yeah. So how do you prevent it if you're older? Just make sure you don't choke. Eat when you're up, you're seated upright, eat while sleeping. Because usually issues start from such a small thing. For example, someone was sleeping while eating, they choked with food. Usually food goes with germs, and then now the body has no way to cough out. Even you have no energy to cough enough germs out of the lungs. It's very hard. So that's how we end up with, like, these lungs, they receive the germs, they start swelling, they create pus. Now those have like balloons inside our lungs. Those balloons that are supposed to be having air in them, they get filled up with pus. It becomes hard to breathe, yeah. So that's how we end up dying because of pneumonia. So avoid choking as much as you can. Get vaccinated, yeah, for these common bacteria because pneumonia. You can go to a facility and ask what are those things. That's like, there are a lot of bacteria where the vaccines are available. Get vaccinated, and yeah. So pneumonia is number 5 on the list. What is number 4 among things shortening our lifespan that we need to work on? We need to work on this and make sure we have longer, healthier lives. So number 4 on the list is something medically called COPD. I'll simplify it. That's an acronym for chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. Yeah. In other words, it's a long-term disease of the respiratory system. Yeah. So what still simplify it better? Usually, our lungs are like sponges, right? These sponges have a lot of small balloons within them. These balloons are the ones that take in air, take it out. Take in air. Every time we breathe, they take in air, take it out, like that. They take it out, of course, via some pipes that connect until we reach the nose. Yeah. They take in, take out, like that. Now, if we are in states whereby we are frequently maybe smoking, we are frequently exposed to a lot of this air pollution, some components, released by these fumes all over. This system, like the way you would be stung by a bee and you swell, yeah, on the skin. So same way when you're taking such things, they injure in there. So that places start swelling. They swell as they heal, swell as they heal. Then even sometimes some swell and don't heal. Instead they keep narrowing. So with time will come when those pipes that we're taking in here are so narrow, are so narrow in that what you cannot now not breathe well. That's why it's a long term, it's a chronic disease. It happens gradually. So time comes when you try to breathe while walking, you can't breathe. Like walking feels like as if you've been running. You see that kind of thing. So it's because, and even when you breathe, you forcefully breathe and air goes in, it can't easily come out. So these balloons with the air, they keep expanding. They can't take out the carbon dioxide and they can't bring in the oxygen. So like breathing becomes hard. In the end, even they burst, and everything just gets into a mess. So that is chronic, that is COPD. So that's how it happens. So how do I avoid it? Just like I mentioned, what causes it? things like smoking, long-term smoking, yeah, things like being exposed to fumes or cooking smoke for a very long time. With time, it will affect us. That's when we have to adjust our cooking systems to those that produce less pollution, then avoid smoking as much as we can. Then, if you're working in a place where you're exposed to industrial fumes, make sure you have the biosafety, the like protective gears, yeah, such as long term, we don't catch you having this kind of thing. You get that was number 4. What is number 3 on this? Number 3 is Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's is shortening, like it's taking a lot of our lives. Alzheimer's disease and dementia. Yeah, I know you might have not heard of this, but usually this one comes in old age. There are some things in our bodies. Usually our body, it 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 forms certain components like proteins, uses them, then after it has used them, it dumps them. So sometimes the dumping system gets affected in that these things are formed, but they are not being dumped. So they pile up, go in our brain, those proteins pile up there, form plaques. They get stuck together, forming some, plaques that pile up in our brain, destroy brain matter. Brain starts shrinking, start getting memory loss, start struggling with even simple tasks, thinking, just keep on, and the brain declines until someone passes. Now that one is a bit complex, yeah, some causes are even genetic, yeah, but it's happening. It's taking a lot of our lives. But of course, most of the things have treatment. If you notice you're having such challenges, memory loss, dementia, yeah, memory loss, you're having thinking challenges with thinking, challenges with doing basic tasks, visit that neurologist. Let them get you assessed. Let them start, managing that. That's how we can reduce. 2 remaining. Number 2, among the leading things that are like one of the things that are causing most of us humans, why we are losing our lives, is stroke. If you go to the ICU, most ICUs, most patients in ICU, it's because of stroke. What is stroke? I'm sure even with, in fact, usually it's not only causing death, it's even incapacitating many people. Find someone they can no longer walk, like in their old age, they can no longer sit, like people are being incapacitated because of stroke. What is stroke? Stroke is of 2 varieties. There's that stroke where your blood that was moving to the brain got blocked, it can no longer go, so your brain starts dying off. And what blocks the vessels? Uncontrolled glucose in diabetes, uncontrolled hypertension, uncontrolled cholesterol, which has increased and increased over time. We didn't notice, it went, destroyed the vessels, blocked them, you get. Now you know the solution. Control the diabetes, control the hypertension, check out for cholesterol as soon as possible. Like every time you check, make sure your cholesterol is also checked, because there are medications that actually reduce cholesterol if it's too high. So stroke. Then the other variety of stroke is where the vessel that was giving blood to the brain bursts, spilling blood all over the brain. And usually what happens, what causes that? Hypertension, high blood pressure that is not controlled. There's that blood pressure that reaches a point where it's too high in that, it causes that. So make sure you know your blood pressure. Moving to the very last. This one, out of 100 deaths, 16 of the people die because of this worldwide. And that is, the layman would call it heart attack. Medically, they call it ischemic heart disease. Our heart dying off. Same reason. The vessel that was going to give blood to the heart itself blocked. What blocked it? Uncontrolled glucose, uncontrolled hypertension or high blood pressure, uncontrolled cholesterol. They block these systems. Time comes, just like a water pipe blocked by rust. Time comes whereby blood cannot go past that area of blockage. So that's how we end up in very confusing scenarios where blood cannot go to the heart. Of course, blood is the one that keeps the heart alive. If it cannot go there, that's how our hearts start dying off, and we end up with heart attacks, sudden deaths. Some of these are noticed, while some actually go unnoticed. Of course, in various areas at various moments, there may be spikes. For example, there are some seasons where malaria is among the highest in some countries. There are times when maybe like COVID-19 during that season, it was also up there. There are times where, these are the various things that illnesses will come up, will overtake. But these have been the constant leading 10. So if we can avoid this, what has been outstanding out of this, I've seen, there are those which are related. heart attacks, stroke, diabetes, kidney disease. They are related, those four. And most of them solution today, make sure as long as you're an adult, have your glucose checked, have your blood pressure checked,